do have an incredible person to talk to. So she doesn't need an introduction, but just for a brief. She's a vet student. She's doing journalism, and more than that, she's beautiful and kind and sweet. Hi, Jay. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, and you?
I'm fine. Uh, for me to pronounce some names at times is so hard. So, what's the same name or just your name, full name?
Name and surname.
Yeah.
My name is Terry Ann Brouwers.
Brouwers. No. I know, like, you're doing journalism, right? But just before we delve into that, how was your childhood growing up, man? How was the environment at home?
So, growing up, I have a very close family. I grew up in Cape Town, from Bellville South, moved to Belhar. So, I'm a pastor's daughter. So, growing up, my life was church. I just know church. We spent our holidays at church, at the office. So that's basically what my life revolved around: church and family time.
You never played sport.
I did. I was at a Christian school and I played soccer, cricket, anything. My mother put me in anything and everything.
Sure, soccer.
Even.
You can play even now.
Be for real. No.
So, like, how was your life in high school? What was most of the things that you were interested in high school?
High school was a bit difficult for me. I was bullied a lot because I was a bigger girl. Also, I wasn't looking back now, I'm like, I wasn't actually big. It's just like the beauty standards for women are ridiculous. But by those standards, I was bullied a lot for my weight, my hair, the way I spoke. You can hear I have a very thick colored accent. So there were a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but I grew into my own, but definitely molded me and made me realize that I need to have a sense of self outside of what people think of me. So I'm guessing the bullying in that way kind of paid off. But so in high school, I played the clarinet. I went to a music school called Hulambre. So I played the clarinet and I played in an orchestra, and then that was part time. And then I also went to Waterfront Theatre School, which was also part time, where I did like drama, musical theatre, tap dance, modern jazz. So it was pretty busy. But closer to the end of high school, I just stopped everything and just kind of focused on my studies.
Talking about being bullied, because of accent and all that stuff, wasn't like multiracial school or maybe mostly colored school?
It was multiracial, but it was mostly people of color. Let me put it like that. So black people and colored people, but it's just, I think a lot of them, like, you get different accents and you get different colored accents. So I think because mine was so harsh, I don't want to say harsh, but it's thick. It's thick. Um, so that was something that I was self-conscious about, and that was kind of like a topic.
It's okay. So, in school, when you were busy playing sports and this musical instrument, you were never involved in any organization.
No, I was just, so I went to these music schools and theater schools. So I'm guessing in that way you could say I was a part of that organization. So Yuholambrechts, they are an institution. It's a school. It's a music school. And then Water and Theater School is an institution as well. So yeah, most of the work that I did when showtime would come, it would be for the productions of those schools.
Yeah. You're a journalist. We have interviewed myself.
Mm.
We have interviewed my friend and others. What made you to be interested in doing journalism?
So after school, I didn't know what I wanted to do because I didn't know like what I was good at. Like, like people know what their talents are. I didn't have any. That's what I thought. So
You were good playing orchestra and something.
yeah, but it wasn't like I left it before I finished school because it wasn't for me. So I left school, and then I was out of school. I didn't get into university. And so I was like figuring out my life. I was working at our church's office. And then,
Getting paid.
yeah, but in terms of barely a livable wage, but I was living at home. So, but it was enough. So I take the gap year and I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, like what I'm good at. And all I knew was that I really liked writing and I liked telling people stories. Like I like listening to stories. Um, so then my father was like, then my life took a turn and I was like, just because I was so tired of people asking me what I'm doing with my life. So I was like, let me just become a flight attendant. So I told my father and he was like, no, there's an open house. There's an open, what do you call open day at City Varsity for journalism. You are going. So I went, I started the course, and that is where I truly fell in love. Like that's where I learned everything about interviewing, about telling people stories. So that's like where the love for that kind of came from and how I knew that this was where I was supposed to be.
But telling people stories, you could be maybe a writer, write scripts. It's part of telling stories, when you write a movie. Why you didn't choose something like that?
Because I'm not a script writer. I'm a journalist. Like I tell real stories. I know like with films it can be like based on true life events, but I don't think I'd be good at that. I'm not creative enough for that. I think for me I get the biggest joy in telling people stories in their words. And you just kind of navigate and steer the boat, but it's basically them telling their stories.
I have a different view though sometimes at journalism.
What?
Journalism, I mean. Not always journalists tell stories. At times, they twist around things, So I don't think necessarily all the time journalists tell stories.
Mhm. Do you mean like they don't tell accurate stories?
Yeah, they don't tell accurate stories. They find something to make the
Story
story
more, yeah.
interesting or what. So are you part of those kind of journalists?
No, because I'm gonna ask with the video I shot for you, did I do anything to make it more exciting?
That
Did I
that
lie?
that one, the difference between that one, it was a video.
Mm.
If maybe you sat down with me and we spoke, when you're about to write, you're going to write something else. When I'm reading, I was like, who was speaking here? It happens most
It
of the time.
does. It does, but it like in any field, you get people that are ethical and reputable, and then you get people that aren't. So at the end of the day, it's up to us to be conscious of the news we consume and where we get it from, making sure we get it from reputable sources and not just like, journalists that can't be trusted or whatever.
So are you going to be an they call it
Investigative
journalist, or
my dream is to be a documentarian. So I love telling stories like what I did with you.
yeah.
I love doing that. So I think that would be my dream.
What do you hope to achieve in the journalist space?
What I hope to achieve is telling people stories and stories that matter. Um, like I remember in city, like when I started, I was like, I want to be a lifestyle journalist because it's fabulous. You go to all these events, you know. But then as I started doing the course and like being where I'm from, Bellville South, Cape Flats, I realized there's so much more to it. So lifestyle is important, lifestyle content is important. But for me, I want to tell stories that matter and that make people think. I always, there's a journalist that I love, and she says what she asks herself before taking on a story is why should people care? And I always want my story should answer that question. Like, why should Marcelo care about this article that I'm writing or this documentary that I'm making? So for that to have any impact, means the story has to be something of value, not just, I'm at the celebrity's house and no.
But you will be famous. You will have celebrity friends. The rich soon.
I already have celebrity friends.
Really, like who?
I want to name drop.
Stop scaring me.
No, I want to name drop, but
Yeah.
I already have celebrity friends. And like those connections are nice as well. I'm not saying I would never, do anything in the entertainment industry or cover those stories. They are important as well and they carry value, but I'm speaking like as a regular thing, I think I'd rather steer more towards stories of value.
What is it that whenever you read an article, magazine, or whatever, you feel like there is something lacking in journalism space at this time?
So, I mean, I can't make a blanket statement, so I can't say this is across the spectrum of media houses and publications. But I definitely think with some publications or some articles that I read, I think there's a lack of catering for people that aren't intellectually, let's say they didn't go to university. There's certain lingo, there's certain wording that's just not, it doesn't make sense. Let me think of a better way to say it. It's not inclusive, is what I mean. So for example, articles, financial articles,
Mhm.
that is something that impacts everyone. The finances of the country, whether the rand drops or this or that. And it's like you read these articles and it's like I have to Google every second word to see what it means. But it's something that impacts me, but I don't know what you're saying. So I think that is something that is lacking, that sense of inclusivity and catering and writing for everyone so that everyone can understand.
So you mean there's lack of writing in simple language that everyone can understand?
Exactly. Like my lecturer, she'll always say, she always says, what does this mean? When we mentoring, what does this mean? Don't assume the audience knows. What does this mean? Explain this. Um, which I think is good because not everyone knows. Like I can't assume that people know certain terminology or what this means or what that means. So you have to break things down.
I hear you. Maybe it happens a lot. You find, for an example, I'll make example of something that I know of. I've experienced it oftentimes. You find lecturers, they come in class, they use these terms, big terms. Someone, he just speaks. He doesn't even explain what he's saying.
Mm.
At the end of the day, he needs us to go and check what is the meaning of the word. We don't even know the spelling of the word because that's the first time we hear about it.
Mm.
So
Exactly.
yeah. And then another thing in journalism space that you are in, is it right? Because I don't know, every department has its own policies and procedures and proper way of doing things. On Sunday, I read a portion of an article about a UCT professor, blah blah blah. But on the cover page, on the front, there was the picture. I will say her name because she won't mind. There was a picture of Professor Mamukhet Paking, and only to find that in that article they wasn't talking about her. They were talking about someone else. So is it moral in journalism space to use my picture while you're talking about Lishana?
No, but that's what I say. It goes back to what newspaper was it? Like certain things, not that it's right, but certain things do like fly, or tend to be like just with certain publications because they're not reputable. It's not a respected publication. Respected publications with reputable journalists don't go that route because it's not right. It's kind of like clickbait, but with a newspaper, like clickbait, like you'll put the picture, on YouTube where it's like the wildest caption or the wildest picture, and you go on the video and it has nothing to do with it. So it's kind of like that and not ethical.
Yeah. And last time when I spoke about her, she She said something like we're just jokingly talking on the show. She said like they this guy who we're talking about was like the reason why she's always writing about her and she puts her on the front page is because she's a selling, you know, selling. So whenever they put her, they know everyone's going to
Will
buy
buy
that
it.
newspaper.
Mm.
So and another thing in the journalism space, I'm trying to understand how the things work. Is it okay to take my picture? You write a story about me, right? You didn't ask for my picture. You take it from my Instagram and put it in the article without my permission.
It's done as long as you reference like where you got it from, like cite your source, so you'll say in the caption photo slash Instagram.
But these days we have policies like
Mm.
on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We have policies. They say if you take my picture or my video without my consent and you upload it, I can report you to this social media platform.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's
you have to ask. I think any good journalist would be like, I got this picture off your Instagram. Is it okay if I use it? That's usually what I do. If I do take a picture from Instagram, um, and it's a picture that I didn't take myself. But yeah, I think that's the way you go about it. Like I've been like studying journalism since 2017, and things are always changing. And I'm still learning.
yeah, the
So
policies they change
they
every year.
change exactly. So I think it's more so about like keeping up to date with what you can and can't do. Because also a lot of things that people might say, oh no, you can't do this. Legally you can. So it really depends.
With your degree, you can work on radio and in the newspaper.
Hmm.
Are you interested in working on radio?
I have been. I am. I am. I always say I would like to do radio. My mother's always like TV, TV, TV. But I enjoy radio. I used to do book reviews for it's an agricultural publication called Food for Mzansi. And I've always wanted to have a podcast. So I've always loved radio and like painting a picture. My lecturer in 2017, my radio lecturer, she would always say it's theater of the mind. So you have to be, I think it's a very difficult craft because there's no visuals. It's just your voice and you have to capture people with that. And I've always liked the idea of that. So yeah.
But radio, talking about radio as a journalist, according to your perspective, um, is your voice like freely as your own voice is just controlled and restricted in certain boundaries? Because there are producers, who produce whatever that you say on the show.
Again, it depends on where you are at, what station you are at. If you are at a commercial station, like there are a lot of talk radio is where I think as a journalist and if you wanna share your opinion and like tackle difficult I think people need to understand there's a difference between like a radio host and a journalist on radio. Because let's say I don't know what it's called here, but back home it's called 94.5 KFM there. All these commercial radio stations that like play music and they have like fun slots. It's like interesting topics, but not serious, like not serious. And then there's a journalist there that does the news. Whereas with talk radio, they do have journalists that still, do the news on the hour, but it's actual journalists in the chair discussing topics, fleshing out topics, and giving their opinions on the topics. But it depends on what radio station you're at. And like I said, I'm a journalist. Like I'm not trying to be a radio host.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be a presenter is the word. So yeah, it depends on what your goal is, what publication, not publication, what radio station you're at.
Are you interested in documenting? Because you say you want to be a documentary journalist. Are you interested in documenting the lives of politicians, ministers?
No, not personally.
Why?
I like emotive stories, stories with emotions, or that carries emotion. And I like telling stories of ordinary people, you know, that seems ordinary, but the stories are really like powerful. I remember for my last year, for my undergrad, I did a documentary. That was my final like submission. It was a documentary on mental health in the Cape Flats and the lack of resources available. That was something that I was very passionate about and a story that I felt needed to be heard. So stories like that, like there are enough people covering politics and politicians. I like human interest stories.
All the best.
Thank you.
Who's the journalist that currently you're looking up to, or maybe not necessarily looking up to, but maybe being inspired by him or her?
There are a few in Cape Town. There's a newspaper called The Son, and I did an internship there. And one of the journalists I got to know there was Bohemia Hofmeester. And I think working so closely with her and seeing the way she tackles story, and like I told you, the way she interacts with human interest stories. She's not like a journalist and this is it, she allows herself to also be a human and treat, her subjects as human. So her, and then like the regulars, last night actually I was listening to SAFM, and then it was a program by Oliver Dixon, and just the way he speaks, how informed he is, and how eloquent he is. He reminds me of Eusebius McKaiser, which is another one that I loved, but he passed away last month. So yeah, those are a few that I can think of off the top of my head.
Journalism needs research, reading a lot, engaging with people a lot,
fact checking. You can't just say anything or write anything.
Yeah, you're a reader.
I do. I love reading.
You haven't read my book yet.
Because I haven't bought it yet. I need to buy it.
Okay. Let's hope you will. Just in closure, what are the things that you wish to achieve in your own life, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Like personally or professionally or both?
Both.
Okay, so professionally, I might want to do my master's. I don't know. And then I think just finding myself, like, it's always a tricky question because I never know the answer, but I think just finding myself and finding my feet as a journalist. I do see myself moving abroad to do my master's. Should I do it?
Where?
NYU, New York. That's like it's always been my dream to go there.
You need serious funding.
I do. It'll
maybe
come.
you have a plan on raising some funds.
You see, you'll help me. So that's that.
How am I going to help you?
You'll help me. You'll figure it out. By then, the Marcella shows was going to be, what did he say? Worldwide, global.
See? Was those my words?
No. Rico knows.
Okay. You will talk to him.
I'll talk to him.
Plus, he has his clothing brand.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm not part of that. Yeah. I have nothing to do with it. Nothing to do. I wasn't there when you guys spoke about that. I only saw the clip.
So yeah, just that. And I think also just like the thing with me is, although I say I want to be a documentarian, I do love everything to do with journalism. So I love writing and I do love radio. So I just think that kind of getting my feet in everywhere, in all those spaces. And then personally, yeah.
Get married, have kids, buy a house in Midrand.
I don't want to, not in Midrand. I don't want to put a timestamp on that. It's God's timing.
Law of attraction.
Hey?
Law of attraction, you must imply.
Yeah, but still, I feel like when I was younger, I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, when I was younger, I was like, when I turn 25, I'm going to be married with my first child on the way. I'm 25 now. I don't even have a boyfriend. So I've learned to just leave it in God's hand and trust his timing.
Guys, do you see how beautiful she is, guys? She just said it on camera that she's single.
Ah,
So if you know your story, you don't wanna play with her. There she is. Take your shots.
ish.
So yeah, even me, like at the very young age, I was so interested in getting married. It's like I wanna have a
Mm.
family and all this stuff. I love family. But now it's just the thing. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So
I think also because we're both Christians, and that's kind of like how you grow up. It's like get married young, have kids. There's no like there's no room for anything else. It's like church, get a good job, get married young, find your person, don't date around, and that's it. So I think that also plays a big role there, but they will deal.
yeah. You were a vet student, right? Just before we close and wrap up everything, what are some of the lessons that you learned coming to varsity? I came here with different views, seeing things from only a Christian perspective. Although in Wattville, where I did my high school, there were some Hindu and Muslims and all this stuff. I didn't know that much. I knew
Mm,
a little bit, but now in the school that I went to in Benoni was only black people. So it wasn't that mixed school.
mm.
Here I go to school or same class with different people who are coming from different background with different life experiences. What are some of the things that shaped you or maybe changed you to see things from different lenses?
I think it didn't happen at Wits because you must remember, like I've studied at 3 institutions before this.
Mm.
So I think the first time I had the experience you are having was in 2017 at City Varsity when I did my first qualification in journalism. And you must know, our church was my life, like I told you. And then I went to a Christian school. So it was like all I knew. Um, so it's really like this. And then I go to university or varsity, and it is the biggest shock of your life because it's like there's people from different countries, people that believe in God, people that don't believe in God, people that are queer, people that are transgender, um, people that are pregnant. So it's like you're dealing with a lot. Um, and I think what it taught me is really to not live like this and also not judge or have a pre notion of what I think of someone or what I think this type of person is, because I think that happens a lot when you grow up in church and church is all you know. There are certain stereotypes that we might carry with us and it moves, with you in spaces. And I also think realizing that you can be friends with people from other religions, people that might not believe in God, people that believe, in vibes.
You
Because
can't be a Christian, marry a Muslim or Hindu or
not for
Buddhist.
me personally, but people do it,
I
and
can
it
do it.
works.
I can do it.
Yeah, and I understand that. Um, Also experiencing that because there was someone, a father was Christian and a mother was Muslim, and like learning, what's that dynamic like. So I think it was just an enlightening experience, um, and seeing how interesting the world is. And it also taught me a lot. Because, when you're in church, it's like you just read the Bible, you read like teen books, but nothing like that challenges you and challenges your thinking. So it also taught me to not just accept anything as is. I'm always asking questions. Why is this like that? Why is that like that?